Okay, you are live.
Okay. Hi. Thanks for attending this meetup for Africa. I think we are trying to do a community building session, but in the process, I thought it was a good idea to share the underlying technology behind Hyperledger. It's an introductory session where we are going to try and demystify Hyperledger technologies, as well engage community members to to enhance community building for African meetup groups. So for those of you we haven't met, I'm Ezra Okenda. I'm a computer scientist. I'm a software engineer by profession, and a professional blockchain developer, engaging in different projects around the ecosystem, around the blockchain community. Currently working on a project with a group called Carbon Violent, which is doing a carbon credit project. Yeah, back to today. So the topics we are going to discuss, some of you might have interacted with these topics, but for the sake of the newcomers into the ecosystem, I'm going to tackle the basic blockchain topics with a bit of detail or technical aspect for those who have been in the ecosystem for a while. Feel free to stop me in case you have a question. So we start now. Yes. Yes. The topic of today is demystifying hyperledger technologies and discussing the community in Africa. So the most basic question anyone will ask, what's blockchain? As you are aware, blockchain encompasses both distributed ledgers and smart contracts. Distributed ledgers, it's a technology where the ledger that shares the common information is shared with nodes within the network. And smart contracts is the business logic that explains that automatically executes within the nodes to reach consensus, to give out the information that's required. Some of you might ask, what's a distributed ledger? A distributed ledger, it's an open, it's a document, it's a shared document within the network that each and every member agrees with. So basically, that's what a distributed ledger is, and it's a log of transactions in another terms. So cryptography for integrity. So it's the technology that blockchains use to secure the communication between the networks. For those of us who deal with cryptography in today experience, so for blockchains, different blockchains implement different cryptographic systems of encryptions to secure their communications. But the most common ones are DS and AES, as well as Merkle tree, which is used in most blockchain systems. But currently, with privacy coming into play, some communities are implementing zero-knowledge proofs that secures the communications a bit better while enhancing privacy. With zero-knowledge proofs is where the implementation takes into account privacy. So most blockchain, social media-based solutions are being built with privacy in mind. So Basically, they are trying to bring into, say, ZKBs, zero knowledge proofs, into their system so that they can make their information, the communication more private. So the distributed ledger systems use different approaches to handle data, where as much as it's public and open source, these ledgers function in a way that it's more like the copies are kept within the network, within the member nodes of the network. So what's a smart contract? This is the big question of the day. So smart contracts are basically automated logic which is embedded within an agreement, within a digital agreement, where once certain conditions are met, the contract is executed. It's an automatic process where if certain things are met within the contract, it's executed. So we have a use case where you can imagine the insurance sector, where there is an agreement between the insurer and the insurer for a certain condition to happen. Then the smart contract executes and the logic goes on. So in this use case, we have, like, in the farming sector, if a certain temperature is recorded, what happens? So in this case, if temperature rises to around 100 degrees, in 100 days, a contract is executed and the insurer pays a farmer a certain amount of money. And the most obvious question most people ask, where does the smart contract get the information from if the temperature is 100 degrees? So in the blockchain ecosystem, we have oracles. Oracles are trusted sources of information. So from these trusted sources of information, people can call the APIs that have this information. Then you can use the information to draw your conclusions, or to check for certain conditions if they are met. So there's another question which most people ask, where most people equate blockchain to cryptocurrency. For those who have been within the loop of late, the cryptocurrency market has been really crashing down. But most people still think that maybe because cryptocurrency is crashing, maybe we shouldn't borrow into blockchain technology. But for those who know what blockchain is a technology that cryptocurrency use to function. So blockchain can be used in other aspects, or to create more self-sustaining solutions and more distributed solutions within organization, without necessarily using the cryptocurrency end of things, because cryptocurrency uses blockchain technology to run, but blockchain doesn't use cryptocurrency to run. So you can build solutions which are based on blockchain technology without necessarily understanding what's happening in the crypto world. So I think that's one of the things that people confuse about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So why blockchain technology? Most people ask themselves, why should we implement blockchain in our business? The most obvious answer I normally give people is that as much as you want, businesses are evolving, and basically the new technology in town that every business want to try is blockchain. And for you to evolve with time, you have to like lay a foundation for you to move from the Web 2 technology to Web 3, because it's an area where most companies are trying to see how best they can fit into the ecosystem. Because early on during the Web 2 advent, most companies were like, okay, these are technology we are trying to implement, but maybe it won't work. But with technology, basically, time comes when we have to move on from certain way of doing things to another way of doing things. And the modern way of doing things now is using blockchain technologies to remodel businesses, to build better business empires. So I think it's a point in time where this technology is going to take over in the near future, and for every company to grow and scale, you have to implement it in your use cases. So where has been blockchain adopted? I think because blockchain is taking a very major strides, majorly in financial services, supply chain, healthcare, environmental conservation. So social media is coming up. Metaverse it's a coming storm. Like also in the social media industry, I think blockchain is doing great because major companies are trying to see the best way they can decentralize their operations. Financial institutions are trying to enhance the blockchain technology, because most people are being doubtful, trust issues with banks. I think in the near future, blockchain is going to like take much of it's going to take over the financial industries, mostly because people don't trust banks anymore. So they need a way that is more transparent, more honest, more clear for them to draw conclusions, as well as the information they share with these banks, which necessarily banks don't need, but you have to share for you to be for the traditional banks to serve you better. But with blockchain technology, I think you will just share the information that the banks need for you to deliver a service you want. So basically, there are a lot of industries that are adopting blockchain technology, and it's just a matter of time before we start seeing them even in our local communities. Yeah. As I said earlier about trust, I think what blockchain does, it makes things more transparent, more honest, and it gives power to the people, because major blockchain projects are built with consensus algorithms with them. The decisions are made with the members within the network. So majorly, where you can decide, you have the power to do what best suits the community of the blockchain. Hyperledger Foundation. So now we are going to share what the Hyperledger is doing to the ecosystem. I think Hyperledger was among the first organization to bring about the use of the Hyperledger of the blockchain to private organizations. It models itself as a way private networks could enhance growth of companies, and gave them a platform where they could develop and grow their solutions. So basically, what Hyperledger does, it gives a chance to communities to build solutions which are tailored to their problems. So basically, that's what Hyperledger does, and much more. So Hyperledger is hosted by the Linux Foundation. There, I think now it has been a while, so Hyperledger has grown significantly with a lot of projects in the ecosystem. So I'm going to move really fast for, yeah, the technologies incubated by the Hyperledger Foundations. We have BESU, which allows both public and private networks. For the sake of clarity, I'm going to elaborate something about public blockchains and private blockchains, as well as permissioned blockchains. So for public blockchains, these are more open source. Everyone can join. You don't need anything. You don't need permission to participate in the network. You just need an address. Then you can directly participate to the network. That's for the public blockchains. Then we have the private blockchains. These are blockchains that are hosted within an organization. So basically, the organization gives permissions and privileges of those who can join and leave the network. As well, we have the permission blockchain. These are blockchains that once that it's a mixture of hybrid and private networks coming together. So basically, for you to be part of the network, a certain network, you have to be given permission ultimately, but they are open. They allow for integration of other blockchain systems into the ecosystem. So yeah, for these are the other projects that are hosted by the Hyperledger Foundation. We have the Fabric. I think this was among the first and most popular framework from the Hyperledger community, and it's the simplest of them all, I think, for me, because it gives power to organization to like prototype really fast, implement their solution fast, and also create a powerful modular solutions for your problem. So basically, with Hyperledger Fabric, you can basically define your business logic at a go, then implement the rules you want for your blockchain, then you are ready to go. We have Indie. It's a project that models around tools, libraries, and reusable components for providing digital identities within on the blockchains. So basically, this is like a tool hub where you get all the things you want to develop your solution. Yeah, we have Iroha, a business blockchain framework designed to be simple, is to incorporate into infrastructure project require distributed ledger technology. This is a technology that's modeled around DLT. So basically, what it does gives businesses a chance to easily develop solutions and incorporate them into their infrastructure easily. And we have it's a model for building, deploying, and running distributed ledgers. So this is another project that is yes. We can proceed. I was checking if there's any question. If you have any question, you can post there. I think I'm going over this really fast. We have the tools. These are like I think I can call them IDEs. These are platforms that you can use to develop your solutions. So some of them are really technical, but some are easier to use. So I'm going to go over the most popular ones, the ones I've used. Cactus. This one is used for integration to allow users to secure and integrate different blockchains. This one works for people, blockchains, different organizations can build their different projects. And sometimes you want to make your ecosystem interoperable with other systems or other blockchains that you are using. So basically with Cactus, you can integrate your blockchains from different organizations can integrate their blockchains. The same organization can use its blockchain ecosystem to integrate different departments so that they can work concurrently. This one is like a measure of how good your solution is. It gives a metrics on how your solution is working. Sometimes you want to try and work with something that is data driven rather than based on thin air. So what Kariba does, it tries to like give you information on the progress of your ecosystem and how well it's working, on what you have to improve and such. So with Celo aims to bring the on-demand as a service deployment model to the blockchain ecosystem to reduce the effort required for creating, managing, and terminating blockchains. So what basically Celo is trying to do is to like create a crowd-based infrastructure that you can use to create, manage, as well terminate your blockchains. Like if you create a solution online, you have a platform where you can go create your blockchain, define your business logic, manage your blockchain on crowd. Then once you feel like you have used your solution the way you want to use it, then you can terminate it again. So Explorer can view, invoke, deploy, or query blocks, transaction, and associated data, network information, chain codes, and transaction families, as well as any other relevant information stored in the ledger. So basically, you can take it from other blockchains. For instance, what other blockchains use to view their data, which is on-chain. So with Explorer, it's where you can like see what's actually happening when you key in a certain address, so you can see what's happening, the transaction associated with the address, the data that is sharing, maybe even the smart contract that has been deployed using the address. So basically, this is like it's like a profile name where you can go with a certain address, get the information about the blockchain you are trying to associate with. Firefly, basically, I will take it from this view. What basically Firefly does is like trying to connect public and private blockchains. So I have used Firefly to like connect a private network and a public network and make them interoperable. But it also has more use cases. It gives you a chance to easily prototype and develop solutions really fast on the ecosystem. We also have the libraries that give us a chance to like prototype really fast. At least what it gives you a shared reusable and interoperable toolkit for creating, transmitting, and storing forever digital credentials. Here you can, this basically what it does, it gives institutions like schools a platform where you can have a decentralized database for your records, where you can have shared information, where you can share your information with the people within your ecosystem. Basically what it does, it gives a secure and more a secure private, it enhances security and privacy into one package. Transact aims to reduce the development effort in writing distributed ledger software by providing a standard interface for executing smart contract that is separate from distributed ledger implementation. So in this case, for those who know DLT, sometimes it's somehow cumbersome for a network to share a distributed ledger. But once you have like a platform where you can share your logic, then there's an interface, a standard interface where you have a common agreed principles of developing certain solutions. You can develop on your own without really relying on DLT, because sometimes DLT technology entails a lot of protocols, a lot of principles that underpin DLT, because it requires a technical understanding as well, a shared ledger, which can be a bit hard to maintain and share within the network. ULSA is a shared cryptographic library that enables implementations to avoid duplicating other cryptographic work and offering security in the process. This is a library that allows the ecosystem to securely share information and communicate within its nodes. It's a library that gives the network its power to be secure and safe from attacks and other aspects of communication. Domain specific. These ones are technology that are tailored towards a specific area. Like READ is focused on supply chain, so in its data models and data types and smart contracts and its business logic, basically it's aligned to a supply chain. In the supply chain, how the flow of commodities and goods within the supply chain ecosystem, where it gives people an easy way of implementing its solutions. So basically, it's an ecosystem that is domain specific for that case. So we also have other projects that are not fully supported, or they don't have an active community that is developing them, but they are useful basically, because like Composer, I think for someone who's beginning to learn Hyperledger, its ecosystem, Composer gives you an edge to like break in, because basically it has a lot of resources that teach in and around Composer. Because if you go to Coursera, Udemy, there are a lot of courses that teach on how Composer works. I think it's one of the first tools out there to be used, and I think it's still useful as much as it's not maintained, but it's pretty much useful. So yeah, I think I will take questions. I've been really brief and fast as I was going through everything. So if anyone has a question, I don't think we are much of a number, so I think you can unmute your mic, ask a question before we go to community building and community engagements.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Ezra. Thanks
Of,
for the presentation.
of,
It's been very good so far. You sort of answered my question, and I also took a look at the website there. I was asking, does this all of this is like open source and free to use?
yes. Everything at Hyperledger is open source, and you are welcome to contribute. I think David will share much on that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, could we have a bit more details on Burrow, Hyperledger Burrow? It seems
I,
that's where, yeah, sorry.
yeah. Yeah. You need something on that.
Yeah, from what you mentioned, although I've seen a lot of things that seem to do very similar things, but Hyperledger Burrow, from what I saw, has something to do with the smart contract machine. Okay,
Or the
so that's
EVM,
okay.
where, yeah. For Barrow, I think for Barrow, what they are trying to do basically is that they're giving a chance of the operator ecosystem to connect to use the power that comes with the EVM machine. So basically, it integrates both. It tries to integrate the EVM ecosystem into the operator ecosystem. So basically, it's more of a permissioned blockchain where they are trying to integrate, where you can integrate the Hyperledger networks to the EVM ecosystem. It's like for those who, if you are aware of the technical aspect of the blockchain development, there is a way you bridge the private networks and the public networks so that you can share the information between the two. So basically, that's what Baro does.
Awesome. Thanks.
And I'll put some links in the Zoom chat. Burrow is no longer an active project, but other projects that are active have the same functionality. So, for example, Fabric, can use the EVM, and so I'll drop a link in Zoom chat to some resources.
So thanks.
Yeah. Any other question?
Hi, Ezra. Rajesh here.
Yeah,
Certainly, it's
welcome.
very informative. Thanks for the sharing the knowledge. I just would like to
Yeah.
understand for the banking and financial services, which sort of Hyperledger flavor that's widely in use, and what are the tools uh, that we can leverage on to to build it quickly.
Yes. So for the banking sector, basically, I will give you. I think it's all about the integration part of the ecosystems to integrate to our banking system. I think Fabric does something on the same, but I'm not sure about that. But I think David will share something on the same. Yeah, David.
So, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, hi David. My
Hi.
question is about which Hyperledger flavor. Is it like Hyperledger Fabric or any other Hyperledger flavor that we can use for the banking services? And number two is like, what are the tools those are readily available to integrate end-to-end ecosystem or like develop end-to-end ecosystem? That might be something specific to like even CBDC or specific to like any banking services.
Sure, got you. Yeah, let me drop a couple of links. And Ezra, if you're sharing your screen, you could either pull these up or we could just talk about them. So in terms of use cases and which tools are good for which use cases, I think our case studies are a good resource for you. I mean, the short answer is all of the different DLTs in the Hyperledger community are general purpose. You could use them to build, all sorts of different applications, and we see that. We see people use a Fabric or a Bezier, for example, to build all sorts of different things, from finance to climate to supply chain to healthcare. So it really runs, a wide range of options. But if you want to see what people are using in production, that's where our case studies come in. I just dropped a link in the Zoom chat. We have a case study library that shows goes really into deep details about different production systems, and it talks about which tool they use, why they used it, what the kind of outcomes they saw of it. So I think that's a really good resource for you. And you can see, for example, in our case study library, there's some in the banking sector. And again, it's not just one tool. There's an example of a CBDC built with Aroha, for example. In Cambodia, they built a solution on Aroha, but there's other examples that use Bezier Fabric. So it's everything is specific to the use case. So it's really hard to know without getting into details about what's the best fit for a given use case. But I think if you look at what has been built in production, that could help you figure out something that maybe is a good fit for what you're trying to do. So that's my recommendation for that. And then I can speak about this more in a minute, but we also have special interest groups around different topics. So if you want to talk to other people who have built something in a given space, for example, in the financial markets, we have a financial market special interest group, and that's a good resource. You can go and ask questions. You're like, hey, I'm trying to build this, or this is my use case. Do you have any recommendations? So the special interest groups are a good resource as well. And we have those across a number of different industries and use cases.
Interesting, David. I think after going through these, the link that you shared, Hyperledger Fabric and Aroha is the most commonly using flavors for the banking services. And the tools just now, those were presented, or those licensed versions are still open source that anyone can directly get from the GitHub and use it?
The tools that Ezra went over, yeah, everything that Ezra went over, all of that is open source. So here, I'll get you one more link, and there's a reference to all of them. So yeah, everything, not just the ledgers, but the tools itself. So for example, Firefly is a tool that you use with a ledger, and that's available as open source, just like everything else. Here, this is the top level. Here, dropping one more link. This is the top level page that links to all of the Hyperledger projects, and so you can find that there, and all of those are open.
That's interesting. It covers almost all the tools here. Okay. And in that case, like, how do we present to the banks that these kind of open sources can be used? Because the banking services, right? They are very particular about licensing and security. So how does like the Hyperledger winning the banking clients in terms of security and managing these open sources?
So if I understand your question, how do we talk to, if a bank is interested in ledgers, for example, how do we talk to them about it? I think so. Case studies are one of the ways to do it. I think when I've talked to people, for example, people really want to know that it's being used in a real world case. I think people have heard about blockchain, have heard about ledgers, and I think a question often comes up is, yeah, but what are people doing with it, right? So I've found the case studies to be very helpful, and that's all public information. Feel free to use that as a resource if you're having a conversation with somebody at a bank, for example. Another thing we've put together, a publication, I just dropped a link to this, is we've created an ebook around CBDCs, again, to help facilitate those conversations. If people are like, well, I've heard about digital currencies, but I don't really know what it is or what's being done with it. That's one of the, Hyperledger is trying to give you material to have those conversations. So that ebook might be a useful resource as well. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, I mean, my question is more of on the security because banks are much more concerned on the security and they are not quite ready to use the open sources, right? So if I recommend, for example, Hyperledger Fabric with Firefly as the tool that we can use it, as it is not licensed and it's still considered as the open source, how ready that the banks to use this particular tool, and how do we present this to the banks actually?
Okay, I think I can take that one. So basically, what happens here is just it's open source in that once you take the like there's an there are existing libraries that you can implement within your use case. So it gives you a platform where rather than starting from scratch, where you have to come up with the consensus, the building blocks for your solution, you just take the libraries that exist, then you can model your use case on top of the Hyperledger technology while implementing your required while implementing your security requirements to your ecosystem. But as well, there are libraries that give you security enhancements that you can work from. So like you have basically somewhere to start from rather than start to build from scratch.
Thanks, David and Ezra. I think yeah, do we have any certificate bodies who can act on behalf of uh, someone is nodding their hand. Okay, let me
Yeah, I
allow
see
ID to
ideas.
talk first, actually. Yeah.
Hi,
Okay, please go
Rajesh.
ahead, ID. Yeah, hi.
Hi, Rajesh. Great question. Thank you for that question. I understand the perspective from which you're coming because enterprise sales, not only banks, big conglomerates, multinationals, telcos, insurance companies, and the likes, want the stability. In fact, they like to pay and mentally associate that payment with the guarantees of support that it appears on the surface that open source does not guarantee. However, and I went through all of this to land by saying Hyperledger is slightly different in this, the family of Hyperledger frameworks are slightly different in the sense that Hyperledger, first of all, like Ezra described, provides you a base set of templates as open source that you can pick up. Hyperledger also now shores up these risks that are oftentimes in the minds of bankers and other people by maintaining a network of certified, and that probably is your next question, certified implementation partners. They're all over the world. I'm sure there is a page on the Hyperledger website. I remember having seen it sometime in the past, where there is a list of approved Hyperledger implementation partners from India to South Africa, all over the world. These are people that know how to help implement this. That's the first comfort factor. The second comfort factor is that many of the consortium partners in the Hyperledger consortium, talk about the biggest names, IBM, Hitachi, Oracle, many of these big names are themselves customers of these open source frameworks. So if you need some kind of references to give your customers, your clients, some degree of comfort, those are the two things. First of all, there's a highly curated network of implementation partners. And secondly, the people who built and contributed to the network are themselves customers. So if IBM trusts it, most likely ABSA will trust it. Most likely Stanbic Bank will trust it. Most likely First Bank will trust it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's clear. So the consortium itself is so sophisticated to answer these kind of questions, and the implementation partners are value adding to the Hyperledger. This is what that I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that ID. And just to share that the page ID was talking about, I dropped in a link to it in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's awesome. So one more quick question, if no one have any questions. So as Adi, David, and Ezra is here, for the startups, if they have to enter into the Hyperledger market, what are some recommendations that you make where we can
You can go.
Okay. Sorry, I may have some opinions about this. So I was in a mentoring session with some startups on Monday, last week Monday, 8 days ago. And one particular startup informed me right there, I had no idea, that they had connected with me on LinkedIn and they had internally, independently adopted Hyperledger as their framework, blockchain framework of choice. So this is kind of a request to David. Is it possible to have some kind of request to the governing body, I think it's called the TSC Technical Steering Committee in Hyperledger, the global governing body, to have some kind of perhaps discounted implementation plan across those technical services partners for startups? I think that would be very, very useful. But I think that there are, now this particular startup that I mentioned chose Hyperledger independently. I think that if people like us, Ezra, David, yourself, myself, started to actively promote Hyperledger as a tool of choice, and it becomes more visible to people in the startup community who are trying to build across Africa, then there will be more uptake. With that uptake, if we could get the support that if technical services partners can give an X% discount for startups, then I think we'll see more uptake. So I know it's not a direct answer, but that's how I'm thinking about the question. Thank you very much.
I have some thoughts on this too, and I'm happy to share, and I'll drop some links as well, just for examples. But I mean, there are startups. I mean, the ecosystem is full of startups, and you know, there's a number of different ways. If I understood the original question correctly, it's like, what would a startup do in this space? And I think there's a number of things. I think one, just getting involved in the community, you know, and that's open to anybody. Membership is not required. Anybody, anywhere, any organization, anywhere, any size can get involved. You know, you can do what you're doing here, is join and take part in a community call. This is a meetup that's being hosted, but there's community calls around all the different projects or all the different special interest groups. So just being involved in the community is a good start, you know, and that can do a number of things for you. One, it can help you with networking. It can help raise your profile. It can help people know that, you know, you're a startup and you're offering services. And there's all examples of that. I just dropped a link to a lab, a Hyperledger lab called HLF Operator that's being started by a small startup that offers, you know, services, DLT services. And so they use that lab as a way to raise their profile, let people know what services they offer. Like, hey, we built this lab, we can build things for you as well. So I think it all depends on your goals. If you're trying to raise your profile or network with people, getting involved in the community is absolutely, you know, great, and anybody anywhere can do that. Again, thank you for joining the call today. You can always present at calls or organize your own calls or take part in calls. There's calls around every Hyperledger project again. So if you want to kind of get involved and get expertise around a specific project, like maybe interoperability is your focus, you know, you can get involved in the calls around that and really, you know, ask a bunch of questions you have, get a lot of knowledge. You can really tap into the expertise in the community just by getting involved. So that's one recommendation. And then for the question around, if I understood the next question around getting listed as a, you know, a certified organization, you know, we do have discounted membership for startups. Basically, we have a tiered membership structure that's based on the size of an organization. So there is a discount kind of already built in. So if membership and that certification program is something you're interested in, we could certainly talk about that. But I don't know if that answers the two questions around just startups, but those were some thoughts.
It's interesting. Thank you so much, David, Eddie, and Arista. Very insightful.
Yeah, welcome. I think now, because we are doing community engagement and community building, I think there are some aspects of the community which, with our number, I think we can keep it open so that at least we can know what can be done to enhance community building. But basically, from my observation, I think virtual meetups are a good way to learn for for most communities around the globe. But for this side of the globe, I think virtual meetups, as much as I really am a big advocate for virtual communities, I think sometimes it becomes harder to engage communities virtually. Maybe if any other person has an opinion around the same topic, I think can share, you can weigh in on it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm interested to hear what people think as well. I think you're right. Virtual meetups may work well for some parts of the community, but not as well for others. And it certainly is no replacement for in-person. I think there's some advantages. It helps you reach a broader audience, but yeah, there's some disadvantages as well. You don't have that same sort of face-to-face interaction. So I'm curious to hear, what people would find useful or suggest.
So, if I may lean in a bit. So I think that the demography of the African continent makes it useful to slightly think about membership and participation slightly differently compared to other chapters around the world. I think that in-person meetings where possible are good, but I don't know that the average person that we'd like to attract is more concerned right now about membership participation on its own, except we have some kind of compelling elements to it, aka in sales pitching, aka a hook. For instance, David and I have discussed this before. Is it possible to have some kind of special discounts for Africans around the certifications and the education packages on the Linux Foundation website? Is it possible? I know that it's a big ask to make, but I can almost guarantee that if there was a special discount for education and certification for Africans, I can almost guarantee that we'll find a flood of interest, okay? And, it may be difficult for me to articulate it, but I kind of feel like membership and participation for in-person will be difficult. So whatever we can get, this number that we can get even on a virtual call, maybe good enough to start with, and let's start to build from there. I think that we should, if this has worked so far, which is the virtual thing, let's continue it. When we have enough numbers, we can then start to think about, in-person meetings, because by definition, in-person is already geographically distributed. I'm sure everyone here on this call are in at least 5 different locations on the continent, if not more. So I'm sorry, I may sound slightly pessimistic, but that's how I see it. I hope my opinion is useful. Thank you.
And I could also just share my observation from other groups in the community too. And I think the answer is you can do both as well. I'm going to drop a link here as well. Just as a matter of fact, the India chapter is very similar in some ways to the community in Africa. It's a big geographic range. India is a big country and there's groups all around it. So it's hard to get those groups together in person. So they have really relied on some virtual events to connect them all. But just this last weekend, they did in fact run a hybrid event where it was in person and virtual. So there's a link, for example, to the wiki page where they posted an event they did in Bangalore that was part of this larger virtual event, and some other cities in India did the same thing where they had kind of an in-person component that was connect to the virtual component. So I think that could be a model for what we do with the community in Africa. We could look at what kind of other parts of the community have done in their region and really build on that. So maybe the answer is both. Maybe we do want both kind of in-person activities and virtual. And I think this is a great start. You know, I think just I've enjoyed this conversation, and getting things going is a great start. You know, I think we'll get more people with another virtual event when it's not right next to the holidays too. And we're also willing, you know, we can do this at any time. You know, thank you for doing this at a time that worked for me, but I'm all the way in California. If it's better, you know, maybe there'd be more people who joined if it was earlier in the day, right? At Africa, you know, in Africa, you know, so there's flexibility to do whatever the group thinks is best. So, you know, we're certainly flexible.
Yeah,
To weigh on, yes, go. It's okay.
I agree with what David mentioned. Yes, like a hybrid approach. Both physical meetups and digital meetups, but also it depends again with the whole geographical area. There wouldn't be much precedent to do like physical meetups, mostly probably where I live, which is in Tanzania, because the blockchain community isn't like that active. But like if we start with Nairobi in Kenya and like with Nigeria as well, you'd find like a lot of people be willing to come to events and so on. So
well, that's great to hear you're in Tanzania. We do actually have a group there. It's smaller, but that does show that there's some interest, you know, in the area. So I mean, it's possible that maybe there are some people to get together in person. If that's something you're interested in talking more about, I can help connect you to the group that's been there, that started there so far. Here, I'll put my email address in here. If you want to have a conversation about just the community in Tanzania, feel free to reach out.
Thanks.
Thanks for your contribution. Think to weigh in on the same. I think basically what's happening with African communities is normal, because sometimes we are aligned to what the organization that we are participating do offer. I think from what Akide said, I think it's more of, what do I get once I show up at Hyperledger, its community, what do they offer? But what I think is that basically to build a community, sometimes you have to begin with maybe college, people who are curious and willing to learn. So basically what I've been doing of late is trying to engage with colleges, people who are interested in the Hyperledger community, what the Hyperledger is doing. And I basically found a buzz around what basically Hyperledger is doing, but most people don't really understand the technical aspect of the Hyperledger community, because most people know Hyperledger. You ask, like in a group of 10 who know about blockchain, they have heard about Hyperledger, but they can't develop on Hyperledger. The tools around Hyperledger, they don't know any. But once you can create a more interactive community where people share ideas on the same, where people try to create solutions around Hyperledger. So something like an hackathon, something like a physical meetup, something like maybe a bootcamp, something that brings people together who share a common goal in and around the blockchain ecosystem and trying to develop on top of the Hyperledger ecosystem. I think it's something that is it's open for discussion, but I think trying something physical, because I've tried, like we tried such a meeting with the organizers. The turnup was low. Today we tried. I was for maybe the timing, because like this side is around 9, so maybe it's late, but we can model our timing. We can try different times and try learn what time people are available, but also keep the door open for something physical so that we can know what do members prefer. Is it physical, or is it virtual, or is it hybrid, so that we can at least make an informed decision based on what members think and want.
I think all that sounds great, and I think you definitely have, everything you said makes a lot of sense around the approach we should take. I will also just add that I think the pandemic is something that, all groups have suffered with. I've been doing the meetups for several years now, and the groups that were really active before the pandemic just, shut down and lost people, lost an organizer, and I think everybody's in this start mode of having to restart. So I don't think the communities in Africa are necessarily alone on this, on needing to like rebuild things. I'm in California. We've started to try to do in-person events again here too, and it's been, slow because the last time we had in-person events was over 2 years ago, and those people have all kind of, drifted away or not been engaged. So, I think this whole year coming up is going to be an interesting challenge, I think, for everybody to try to rebuild some capacity around kind of the community building events. So I'll just throw that in there as well, that we're kind of dealing with the pandemic after effects too, I think.
So I was thinking maybe because all the members, for the attendees, I was hoping maybe next year we can plan something. We can plan a virtual meetup, and again we can we can also keep in mind that we have the door is open for us to have a physical meetup on the same, so that we can create a more engaging community. So for all the attendees who showed up today, I think apart from, I'm not sure, I think you are going to take we are going to be our ambassadors out there, so that we can enhance and build a community that is interested in learning what Hyperledger does. And I'm sure David will share something on the same. You don't have to be a technical person to engage in the Hyperledger community. There are some aspects in and around Hyperledger which doesn't require to be a computer scientist, a programmer, or any other role. You can take up a role that you bring people together to share ideas, to like bring up topics that can enhance the usage and the adoption of the blockchain technology, in this case, the Hyperledger. So basically, those are my thoughts on the same.
Again, yeah, thank you, Ezra, for putting all that together and sharing your thoughts. And as far as community goes, I mean, I do have a presentation I could go through, but I thought it would be just better just do what we're doing, just have this discussion and answer questions and, talk about suggestions and ideas. So, but just to introduce myself, I guess I didn't do that at the beginning. My name is David Boswell. I'm the Senior Director of Community Architecture at the Linux Foundation for Hyperledger, and my role is to support people in the community. So people just like yourselves who are showing up and are interested, I want to just hear what you're trying to achieve and help you be successful at that. So, I always say, if you try to run an open source community and no community members show up, then you don't really have a community. So it's great. I'm glad that you're here, and thank you for your time. And again, if there's something that you're wanting to do in the community, let me know, and I'm here to support you with that.
If you have a question, you can ask.
Sorry, Rajesh, I came here.
Yeah.
Yeah, one quick question from my side is, what are the initiatives that the Linux Foundation is taking to include the students or college fresh grads involving in the community? So I just want to understand, because I don't have any idea on that. So David, if you can shed some light on that.
That's a great question. Yeah, and that's actually a really timely question too. So, and I think Ezra mentioned this too. So this is actually a good thing for us to think about a little bit. So involving students in the community is critical. I mean, I think that's something that's very important, and working with universities is something that is a priority for us. So one thing that we do every year to help students get involved is we have a paid mentorship program. And actually the timing is great because it starts at the beginning of the year. So every year, and I just dropped a link to that, you can see an example of what we've done in the past years. We set up a number of mentors that are people in the community who are running a project or a lab or are active in the community in some way and want to share their knowledge and help new people get familiar with open source and learn some, gain some expertise around Hyperledger projects. So this is a great opportunity for students. So just be aware of this. At the beginning of the year, we will start the process of launching a new round of paid mentorships. And so this is open to anybody both to be a mentor. If you have expertise and you want to share that with a student or somebody else in the community, we'll have a call for mentors to propose projects. And then once we have those mentors identified, we'll then put a call out for students and mentees, people who want to be mentees and get connected to those mentors to apply. And then we do a round of matching. Mentors will talk to mentees and then select, we'll do that matching process. And then the mentees will start on a project. And at the end of the year, they will then present what they've done. And the goal being to really give students or other people a chance to really have a chance to, gain that expertise and get some support while doing that. So that's one initiative, and certainly a big one since the timing is right. So just be aware of that. If you or other people in the community think that they'd like to take part in that, again, that link I dropped to is to our wiki. There's no information up there yet, I don't think, about the 2023 program because we're still wrapping up the 2022 program, but early next year, the 2023 information will be available. So that's one thing we do. Another thing is just partnerships. We do offer free membership for universities that are actively involved in the community. So if that's something that, if there's a university in where you are that wants to get more actively involved in the community, and if being a member is something of interest, then that's something we also offer. Because again, it's a priority for us to work with universities. So kind of offer that as something that could support a university's involvement.
Great, that's interesting, David. I will be connecting with you mostly on this, take it further, because I do have some of the universities who are interested to extend the knowledge of their students in the blockchain, and not specific to the Hyperledger, but we can present to them to see like how we can take it forward from there.
That sounds great. Yeah, I dropped my email in the Zoom chat. Please feel free to follow up.
Yeah, I have that, David. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah. My question again was on the mentorship program. What kind of criteria are you looking for mentors again?
That's a good question. Let me see. I think that should be documented on here. Here, let me see criteria eligibility. I mean, it's pretty open. We do want to make it available for, as many people as possible to apply. So there's a page on the wiki that speaks about eligibility. And then in terms of criteria, I think that really depends on the specific project. For example, if you're doing a mentorship and it's around one technology versus another, the mentors may be looking for one specific skill set or not. But again, the goal is to take somebody who doesn't necessarily know everything there is to know about blockchain and help them get that expertise. So it's not like somebody who is applying wouldn't have to be an expert in the technologies, right? They may need some basics around, a given project. Again, if you want to look at examples of different projects and get a sense for that, it really runs kind of a range. Here, I'll drop a link to the 2022 projects. You can get a sense for what was being offered this year. I don't know what's going to be offered next year because we haven't run that yet, but it really could be almost anything. I'm looking here, right? Some of them are going to be much more technical and some are going to be perhaps less technical. And then of the technical projects, those really run a range too of what sorts of technologies are being, are involved in that project.
Also, follow-up question. Are they virtual only or physical only mentorships?
Yeah, you can be anywhere. I mean, we I mean, the whole community is run kind of online. So yeah, anybody anywhere can apply.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. And also kudos on the links. You have them real quick. Nice.
Yeah, great. Yeah, glad those are useful resources.
I think if nobody has a question now, I think thank you so much for attending. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous Happy New Year.
You too. You too. Happy holidays to everyone. And Ezra, thank you again for putting this together.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Happy Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
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 All right.
Have a nice evening.